What up, people? Mike Steph here with another edition of Mike Steph's WrestleMania Memories. This episode, we will be talking about WrestleMania 32. WrestleMania 32 emanated from Jerry World, Texas, where everything bigger, better in Texas. 2016, Dallas, Texas. The main event for this match, the main event for this event was Roman Reigns. Yes, it's going to be a reoccurring thing on these WrestleMania memory for the time being. Well, at least for going forward, that the main event will consist of Roman Reigns versus someone. Got Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar last week. Well, last episode we got Roman Reigns versus the Cerebral Assassin Triple H. Yeah, exactly. 2016. Triple H is in the main event of WrestleMania. Not only is he in the main event of WrestleMania, he is the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And I know you're probably wondering, huh? What? In 2016? I thought he was half retired. Did he have a nostalgia match last year? In 2015 against Stern? Yes, he did. But in the everlasting quest to make sure that Roman Reigns was solidified as a main event player, to have the respect of the WWE universe, who better than to put Roman Reigns over, to put him back, put him on that upper echelon, to make him solidified as the face of WWE than the Cerebral Assassin Triple H. Let's go back. Let's go back in time. Okay. So Seth Rollins had the heist of the century the year prior, right? And he succumbed to injury, I want to say September or October, one of those times of 2015. They had a title tournament for Survivor Series, a tournament to crown the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And guess who won that tournament? None other than Roman Reigns. But Roman Reigns' time at top would not be sustained, wouldn't even last the end of the night. Because at the end of the night, once he won and beat his former Shield member, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns lost the championship to Sheamus, who cashed in the Money in the Bank contract. Yes, this is when we had the League of Nations. Sheamus was the head of the League of Nations. The League of Nations, you ask, what was that? Some faction they cobbled together with. If you're a foreigner, you was in the League of Nations. You had Sheamus from Ireland. You had Bad News Barrett from England. You had Alberto Del Rio. Yes, he came back. He's from Mexico. And I think you had Rusev. I think Rusev was in there. Of course, Bulgaria. So that was his rogue band of misfits trying to protect him against Roman Reigns. Even Vince McMahon came out of quote-unquote retirement, even though he was never retired, but came out and got physical and allowed Roman Reigns to give him a Superman punch in an effort to get Roman Reigns over. Roman Reigns finally regained the championship, only to be made to put it on the line at the 2016 Royal Rumble. The 2016 Royal Rumble was one against all. Reigns against all. He was going to be the number one entrant. And in order for him to retain that championship, he had to win the Royal Rumble from the number one spot. And he came close. He came close, even though the majority of the match, he was on the outside underneath the rope, but he was on the outside or in the corner, sleep. But neither here there, by any means necessary. And this is before this became a thing. The 2016 Royal Rumble had a debut who we would talk about later on in this episode. So we fast forward to the end of the Royal Rumble, and you have Triple H making a surprise appearance. Of course, because the Authority is still a thing in 2016. Yes, the Authority was still a thing in 2016. The reason I paused for that because the Authority had been a thing since what? 2014? Just saying. Anyway, so he came and he won the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble, in the Royal Rumble, and went into WrestleMania as the champion. Now, once again, what I remember is at the time, there was a big debate on whether or not Roman Reigns should be in the main event or Dean Ambrose should be in the main event. And you want to know why? Because matter of fact, they had a special event from Toronto, Canada, Roadblock. I thought it was last year. I thought it was in 2015 or 2016, Roadblock. The reason was named Roadblock because, well, Triple H had defended the championship against Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose had such a wave of popularity that a lot of people actually thought maybe, just maybe, he might win. This was, to me, to be honest, it was probably Dean Ambrose's best match in WWE. Period. Before and after. And come to think about this. Dean Ambrose was WWE champion for a small time, but this was his best match. He showed a technical acumen that people didn't realize. He went toe to toe with Triple H, and he had the resounding approval of the WWE universe at that time. So a lot of people was like, listen, he actually, it seemed like the crowd is choosing Dean Ambrose over Roman Reigns. The only problem is Vince wanted Roman, and Vince didn't see Dean Ambrose as the guy. Period. Period. And that's why fast forward a couple years later, Dean Ambrose said, you know what, sayonara, I'm out of here. And he is currently in AEW as John Moxley, the ace of AEW, John Moxley. But so we end up getting this matchup. And this was also a WrestleMania in which it was the beginning of marathon WrestleManias. I'm talking about WrestleManias that was like 5.5 hours. By the time we got to the main event, this main event went about 35 minutes. There's no way in 2016 Triple H should be going 35 minutes. And tell you the truth, Roman Reigns shouldn't be going 35 minutes either. But it was almost like, you want this title? Guess what, buddy? You're in the main event with me. This is my last time, probably. I'm going to be main eventing. I'm going to make sure that the crowd gets their money's worth. Even though the crowd was half asleep, so was I. But Roman Reigns did overcome, and he ended WrestleMania 32 as WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Now, the funny thing about this is what a lot of people don't realize, or a lot of people neglect to mention, is that these were the seeds of the bloodline saga that started in 2020. The seeds of the bloodline saga started in 2016 after he was coronated the champion. In a rivalry against this man, the newly debuting AJ Styles, fresh off of a great run in New Japan Wrestling, and also known as the man of TNA for all those years, AJ Styles debuted at the 2016 Royal Rumble. And he quickly got into a rivalry with Y2J, Chris Jericho. and they really like sped up the tag team, and then the betrayal, and Chris Jericho turned heel and set up this match in which, to me, I get what they were going for. At this point in time, Chris Jericho was the grizzled veteran, right? And that's not to say that AJ Styles wasn't a veteran. AJ Styles wasn't a veteran of WWE. So, in McMahon's point of view, he's like, listen, if he can have a good match with Chris Jericho, and he can show me that he's really worth what everybody's telling me he is, then maybe, just maybe, I might give him a chance. Um, the match to me was a little underwhelming, not based on AJ Styles, but Chris Jericho. Because Chris Jericho was starting to get at that point which he really couldn't hang in the ring as much as he could in the past. And I'm not saying he was a slouch, it was just levels to this thing. AJ Styles was here, Jericho was here. He made attempts, but it just didn't work. And AJ actually had to pay his dues and lost his WrestleMania debut to Chris Jericho, who was going by the moniker the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Oh, yawn. But that match and that rivalry actually gave Vince McMahon confidence going forward to say, you know what? All right, you passed that test. How about this one? I'm going to give you, since the crowd is bubbling behind you, I'm going to give you an opportunity at the WWE Championship. You're not going to win, but you can shine up my boy Roman. And we'll see from there. And boy, did he shine Roman, but Roman once again held his own. The reason I bring up that little rivalry after WrestleMania, even though it didn't happen at WrestleMania, it wasn't even set up at WrestleMania, is the fact that during those couple months after WrestleMania, you had AJ Styles, and then he formed a club with Gallows and Anderson. And then you had Roman Reigns bringing his cousins, the Usos, Jay and Jimmy, by his side, and they literally called themselves the Bloodline. It wasn't a thing, but it was the Bloodline. Those are his cousins. His cousins was there to watch Roman's back. And they had a rivalry that was very underrated at that time, and tell you the truth, cemented AJ Styles as the guy in WWE, and also cemented Roman Reigns as a guy that's not a slouch in the ring. No matter who he's going against, he's going to hold up more than hold up his own end of the bargain. So, also on that match, also on that show, once again, was Dean Ambrose against Brock Lesnar in a no holds barred match. This was disappointing for two things. One, outside the ring, Brock Lesnar was planning on having a return to UFC, so he was not trying to get hurt, and he was not trying to look weak. So, in order for it to even look somewhat even, you had to have weapons involved, because nobody would believe that Dean Ambrose had a chance, and you know what, to even last 5 minutes. Never mind 5 seconds with Brock Lesnar without some weapons. But the thing is, Dean Ambrose, being that he was from CCW, from the indie scene, and as you know now in AEW, he can get hardcore with the best of them. But once again, Brock was like, nah, I ain't doing that. Nah, I ain't doing that. No, we're not doing that either. Matter of fact, I begrudgingly will let you do the kendo stick. But guess what? I'm going to whip you up, you know what, with the kendo stick. So I remember when Dean Ambrose left and he had interviews upon his exit, he mentioned this match as one of the times in which he realized that, yeah, the boss thinks I'm an idiot. The boss thinks I'm only good for certain things. And you put me in a ring with this guy. This guy doesn't want to do anything. I had a whole bunch of creative spots. He wasn't even down with none of them. So I realized my time was coming to an end. And this was in 2016. Dean Ambrose left April 2019. So for another 3 years, he was pretty much just skating on by like, listen, it doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. Which is a shame. But once again, everybody's meant for what they're meant for. And last, well, not last but not least, almost forgot. These three women you see on the screen, not five, but three, the three wrestlers, three active wrestlers, because I'm not going to disparage Lita. Sasha Banks, known now as Mercedes Moné, Becky Lynch, the man, back then when she was just Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair. They had a triple threat match at the Showcase of the Immortals. This was also historic for it being the last match where them retiring the Divas Championship and starting the WWE Women's Championship. They brought them back because they were part of the women's revolution, the women's evolution. This match, this was the beginning of WWE actually having female wrestlers that can really work. And I'm not, and this not to disparage anybody from the past, not to disparage Lita, not to disparage Trish Stratus. Jazz was a bad, you know what, Victoria, but we had Beth Phoenix, but then also at the same time we had Layla, which was a good wrestler. We had Michelle McCool, we had Candice Michelle, we had female wrestlers who was there for their looks, not so much for their skills. Sable, Tori. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. This was the beginning of them actually getting ample time and a part of the spotlight to show that there was a new era embarking in WWE, and that was on the women's revolution. In this triple threat, Charlotte retained by beating Becky, of course, because that's kind of how it was. Charlotte beat Becky, and then when it was one-on-one, Charlotte beat Sasha. And I think Becky might have been able to beat Sasha, but nobody was beating Charlotte. And to look back at these matches from back then, all three of these women were spectacular in their own way. Sasha was amazing. Becky was amazing. Charlotte was amazing. If you fast forward now to how these women have progressed throughout the years, I'm not going to say age because that's a bad connotation. That's a negative connotation. But how they progressed, Sasha is at the top of her game. Becky, maybe not at her physical peak, but still, dare I say, near the top of her game. And Charlotte, for various reasons, injury related, so forth, I think she's taking the biggest dip. But at this point in time, this was a certified banger. Certified banger. And last but not least, The Undertaker in Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania 32 against Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon had made his return with his intended purpose to free the WWE Universe from the Authority. And this match was supposed to be if Shane McMahon, if he won? Yeah, if Shane McMahon won, he would be in charge of Monday Night Raw. They would give him Monday Night Raw. Of course, Shane McMahon was not beating The Undertaker. It was a spectacle. Shane McMahon did his stunt things. Shane McMahon, fell from the top of or jumped from the top of the Hell in a Cell through a table. And The Undertaker ended up tombstoning him and winning. Now, when you look back on the list of victims for The Undertaker, Shane McMahon is one of them. But you know what made this so nonsensical? The next night, they actually gave him some type of control of Raw. So what was the point of the match? I know what the point of the match was, to get Shane McMahon on the card. Duh. Shane McMahon eventually ended up becoming the GM of SmackDown when they did another official brand split. And this would not be his last appearance on the granddaddy of them all at WrestleMania. Next year, he has another match with actually, to be honest, the match that he had next year at WrestleMania 33 was probably one of the best matches of that card. And I mean, it's easy for someone to rev up for one match a year, but I'll give him his due. He did have a good match, and this was a match that was good also. So that's it. That's it. Getting out of here. Um, Next episode on WrestleMania Memories, we have Goldberg returning to the WrestleMania stage, The Undertaker being put out the pasture, and that's all I'm going to put out for now because guess what? I want you to tune in tomorrow for the next edition of Mike Steph's WrestleMania Memories. Goodbye. I said bye.